So it looks like you're doing some research before jumping into the car market,
Yeah, always a good idea.
especially if you're trying to avoid ending up on the side of the road with a broken down engine.
Definitely.
And you've brought us this article here called Least Reliable Car Engines. Avoid these time bombs.
Oh, yeah, this one's a classic.
Yeah, it seems like you're trying to avoid those ticking time bombs, those mechanical nightmares, the engines that drink oil like it's going out of style.
Right. You don't want to be stuck with a car that's constantly in the shop or draining your bank account with repairs.
Right, exactly. So let's dive into this article and see what we can learn about these unreliable engines.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so this article highlights 23 car engines that are known for failing before they even hit 39,000 miles.
Yeah, 39,000 miles. It's not a lot.
No, it's barely broken in for some cars. You'd think an engine would last longer than that.
You would think so, but a lot of these engines, they have common design flaws. Sometimes they prioritize performance over longevity.
So if you're looking at a used sports car, you might be paying a premium in maintenance costs down the road.
Exactly. You got to
Yeah.
factor that into the total cost of ownership.
Right. Okay, so let's get into some specifics. What kind of engines are we talking about here?
Well, a lot of these engines fall into a few categories. We've got a good number of European luxury cars on this list.
Uh-huh.
BMW,
Uh-huh.
Audi,
Okay.
Alfa Romeo,
Yeah.
Minis, those brands that are known for their performance.
Yeah. Those brands are known for their performance, but I've also heard some whispers about their reliability.
Precisely. And one engine that stands out is the BMW N63 V8,
Okay.
found in models from 2008 to 2012.
Okay.
It's powerful, no doubt, but it has some serious issues.
Like what kind of issues are we talking about?
Well, the turbocharger placement, while great for responsiveness, creates intense heat, and that leads to accelerated wear and tear, especially when it comes to oil consumption.
Oh, so you're saying frequent oil changes are like super crucial for this engine?
Absolutely. You could be spending $5,000 to $10,000 every year just to keep this thing running.
Ouch. That's a hefty price to pay for performance.
It is. You gotta love cars, but sometimes they don't love you back.
Right. So what about some other examples of European engines that made this list?
Well, the Mini Prince engine is another one to watch out for.
I actually knew somebody who had a Mini, and it was constantly in the shop.
Yeah, it's notorious for having a whole laundry list of problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Timing chain, tensioner failures,
Okay.
turbocharger issues,
Uh-huh.
even a corroded gearbox selector shaft.
What does that even mean?
Well, imagine being stuck on a hill because you can't get it out of neutral.
Oh, no.
Yeah, not a good time.
Not a good time. Okay, so we've talked about some European luxury cars. What other categories of engines made the list?
We also have a handful of diesel engines from various manufacturers.
Okay.
Diesels, they can be great for fuel economy and torque, but they also tend to have complex emission systems and demanding maintenance needs.
Right.
So you really got to stay on top of those maintenance schedules.
Got it. Can you give us an example of a diesel engine that didn't quite live up to expectations?
Yeah, the Toyota 2.2 DCAT engine,
Okay.
used in models from 2005 to 2015.
Right.
This one has a serious what they call fumigation problem.
Fumigation problem. What does that mean? Does it attract bugs?
Not quite. Think of it like this, the diesel particulate filter,
Okay.
or DPF.
Uh-huh.
It gets clogged with soot because this engine produces so much smoke.
Oh, so it's like a smoky engine.
Yeah, you could be driving down the road and suddenly your car turns into a smoke machine.
Not good.
No, not at all.
It's another expensive repair to add to the list.
Definitely. And what's interesting is we also have a few American-made engines on this list.
Really?
Yeah, reminding us that even brands known for their durability have their weak points.
Okay, so nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, exactly.
Which American engine stood out to you?
Well, the Cadillac Northstar 5.8 engine from the 2000s. It's a classic example of over-engineering gone wrong. The aluminum threads in the engine block are wink.
Okay.
They're prone to stripping,
Right.
and that leads to blown head gaskets.
So a very expensive repair.
Very expensive. And then there's the Chevrolet 2.2L Ecotec 3V engine,
Okay.
used in the 2021 Chevy Suburban.
Right. A family SUV.
Yeah, you're buying a family SUV for reliability, and then bam, a $4,000 repair bill hits you out of nowhere.
Ouch. That's not what you want to hear.
No, not at all.
So what's the issue with this one?
This engine uses weak plastic lifters that can break and cause catastrophic engine failure.
Oh, wow.
It's a reminder that even with advancements in technology, design flaws can still slip through the cracks.
It's almost like playing engine roulette.
It is. You never know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is there any hope for people who might end up with one of these time bombs ticking under their hoods?
There is. Remember, proper maintenance can extend the life of any engine.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Even the ones on this list.
So what kind of maintenance are we talking about?
Regular oil changes,
Yep.
using high-quality fuel,
Uh-huh.
addressing small problems before they become big ones.
So basic car maintenance 101 can really go a long way.
Absolutely. It's like taking care of your body. If you treat it well, it'll treat you well.
I like that analogy. Okay, so far we've covered some real horror stories from the world of car engines, especially from European luxury brands and those with diesel engines. But we're just getting started. There are more unreliable engines to unpack, so stay tuned. Okay, so we've talked about some European luxury cars and some diesel engines that have a reputation for being a bit, shall we say, temperamental.
Right, some real divas of the engine world.
Exactly. But our deep dive into unreliable engines isn't over yet. What else do we have on this list?
Well, we've covered the trend of performance over longevity, but there are other design quirks that can spell trouble for car owners.
Okay, like what kind of design quirks should we be looking out for?
Let's talk about timing chains.
Okay.
They're a crucial part of an engine and they're supposed to last the lifetime of the vehicle.
Right.
But some engines are notorious for having weak timing chain systems.
Ah, so a weak timing chain can be a major red flag.
Absolutely. One example is the BMW N47 diesel engine,
Okay.
used in models from 2007 to 2012.
Right.
The timing chain is known to fail prematurely in this engine.
And is that an easy fix?
Not at all. It's positioned at the back of the engine.
Oh, so it's hard to get to.
Very hard to get to. It makes repairs incredibly complicated and expensive.
How expensive are we talking?
Potentially more than $5,000,
Wow.
especially if there's significant damage to the engine.
So not a cheap fix.
And it's not just the timing chain. Oil leaks and gasket failures are also common problems with the N47.
It sounds like this engine requires a lot of TLC.
It does, and a lot of money.
Right. Speaking of timing chains, the Audi 2.5-liter V6 TDI engine also has a timing chain related issue.
Yeah, this one was used in older Audi and Volkswagen models from 1997 to 2005.
Okay, and what's the problem with this one?
Well, the design of the cylinder head causes the camshafts to wear out prematurely, especially if you're not diligent about oil changes.
So staying on top of those oil changes is extra important with this engine.
Absolutely. Regular oil changes using the correct oil specification can significantly extend the life of those camshafts.
Okay, good to know. Now, this next one really surprised me, the Toyota 4GR FSE V6 engine.
Oh, yeah. This one's a bit of a head scratcher.
It is because it's in the Lexus IS250, and we always think of Toyotas as being reliable.
You do. But this engine has some known issues.
Like what kind of issues?
Carbon buildup on the intake valves.
Okay,
A weak timing chain tensioner.
there's that timing chain again.
There it is again. Clogged injectors and even cracked cylinder heads in some early models.
Wow, that's a lot of problems for a Toyota engine.
It is. It definitely highlights the importance of doing your research even when you think you're dealing with a reliable brand.
Right. You can't just assume.
You can't assume.
Okay, so we've talked about timing chains, but what other design quirks should people be aware of?
Sometimes it's not just the big components like timing chains that cause problems. Smaller parts can also be a major headache.
Oh, interesting. Can you give us an example?
Remember that mini Prince engine we discussed earlier? Well, in addition to those timing chain issues, it also has a problem with a corroded gearbox selector shaft.
A corroded what?
Gearbox selector shaft.
What does that even mean for the driver?
Essentially, the gear shift can become completely unresponsive.
Oh, wow.
You might be stuck in neutral or unable to shift into the gear you need.
So it's not just an inconvenience. It could be a safety hazard.
Exactly. And mechanics usually have to replace the entire shifter assembly when this happens.
Okay, and how much does that cost?
Anywhere from $600 to $800.
Okay, so another expensive repair to add to the list.
It's like a domino effect. One small part fails, and it can lead to a cascade of problems.
What other engines are known for these kinds of smaller part failures?
The Renault 2.2 DCI engine,
Okay.
used in models from 1999 to 2009.
Right.
It's notorious for its weak head gasket. This can lead to coolant leaks and overheating.
And is that an easy fix?
Not really. The repair is labor-intensive and expensive.
Like how expensive?
Anywhere from $600 to over $2,000.
It's another engine to avoid if you're trying to keep your repair costs down.
It is. Those small parts, they can cause just as much trouble as the big ones.
It seems like it. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit.
Hmm.
We've talked about a lot of engines that are prone to mechanical problems.
Right.
But are there any that are problematic simply because of their design or their engineering?
You bet. The BMW S65 V8 engine is a great example.
Okay, and what cars is this engine in?
This one was found in the E90 and E92 M3 models.
Okay, so the sporty BMWs.
Exactly. It's a high-revving, naturally aspirated V8 that delivers exhilarating performance.
Sounds fun.
It is, but it also requires meticulous maintenance and is prone to some expensive problems.
So it's a case of high performance, high maintenance.
Exactly. For one, the bearings in this engine are known to wear out quickly, especially if you don't warm up the engine properly or use the wrong type of oil.
Okay, so you really got to baby this engine.
You do. Additionally, the throttle body actuator uses plastic gears that tend to fail.
And I'm assuming that's an expensive fix.
It is. It requires costly replacement.
So it's an engine for enthusiasts who are willing to put in the time and the money to keep it running smoothly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about engines that aren't necessarily high performance, but still have design flaws?
Yeah. Are there any that come to mind?
The Fiat 1.3 multi-jet first-generation engine,
Okay.
used in models from 2003 to 2009.
Right.
It's a small engine, but it has a big problem with excessive oil consumption.
Wow. Excessive oil consumption. What did that look like in practice?
Even if you follow Fiat's recommended oil change intervals, you might find yourself topping up the oil every few weeks.
Wow.
And over time, that can lead to wear on the piston rings and potentially catastrophic engine failure.
So this little engine can be a real oil guzzler.
Can. Are there any other issues with this engine?
I don't know. You tell me.
Unfortunately, yes. The timing chain is a known weak point.
Where we go again?
There it is again. And coolant leaks into the cylinders are another common problem.
Oh, so multiple problems.
Multiple problems. It's a combination of design flaws and material choices that make this engine less than reliable.
It seems like we keep coming back to this theme of design flaws and questionable material choices.
It's a common thread among many of the engines on this list. Sometimes it's a lack of attention to detail, sometimes it's cutting corners to save costs, and sometimes it's just plain bad engineering.
Okay, let's talk about another engine that seems to suffer from this combination of design flaws and material choices. The Skoda 1.2 HTP engine.
Yeah, this one was used in models from 2002 to 2007.
Huh?
And this article actually suggests walking away from any car with this engine.
Wow, they don't hold back.
They don't. It's strong advice, and for good reason. This engine has a notoriously weak timing system.
Okay.
The hydraulic tensioner is so flimsy that the timing chain can jump a tooth or more, even when the car is parked on a slope.
Wait, you're telling me that even parking your car can lead to engine problems?
Believe it or not, yes. And it's not just the timing chain. The valves are also prone to burning out. This engine is riddled with problems.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is. What about some American engines that are known for having design flaws?
Yeah, are there any that come to mind?
The Chevrolet 2.2-liter OHV inline-4 engine,
Okay.
used in the Chevrolet Cavalier and Pontiac Sunfire models.
Right.
It has a reputation for being underpowered and unreliable.
Okay.
Head gasket failures, oil leaks, misfires are common headaches for owners.
Not good. And to top it all off, it's not even fuel efficient.
Nope, not at all. Okay, let's talk about a more modern American engine, the 1.5-liter or 2.0-liter EcoBoost engine.
Okay.
Used in various Ford models, including the Ford Bronco Sport.
All right.
This engine has been plagued with problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Rattling noises, oil leaks that can lead to engine fires, and even complete engine failures.
So some serious issues.
Some serious issues. Some owners have reported having their engines replaced multiple times under warranty.
That's concerning. It doesn't sound like the EcoBoost engine is living up to its name in terms of reliability.
It doesn't. What about the 5.3L Ecotec 3 V8?
Oh, yeah. Used in the 2021 Chevy Suburban.
Exactly. We talked about this one earlier.
We did, and it's worth mentioning again.
It is because it's a prime example of a modern engine with a major design flaw.
And what was that design flaw again?
The lifters are held in place by weak plastic keepers that can break, causing the lifters to move out of position and damage the camshaft, eventually leading to engine failure.
Right, and fixing that problem can cost a fortune.
It can. It's a shame because the Suburban is marketed as a reliable family SUV, but this engine issue has left many owners feeling frustrated and disappointed.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even with all the advancements in automotive technology, design flaws can still slip through the cracks.
They can, and those flaws can have serious consequences for car owners.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground so far. We've talked about European luxury cars, diesels, timing chains, small part failures, high-performance engines, and even those pesky design flaws that can plague any engine. But this article lists even more unreliable engines. What's next on our deep dive? Wow, it feels like we've been through a crash course in engine failures.
It's a lot to take in.
It is so many things to watch out for.
Yeah.
But this least reliable list goes on and on. Are there any other engine trends we should be aware of?
Well, we've seen how smaller parts can cause big trouble, but sometimes it's not even a mechanical issue.
Right.
Electrical problems can be just as frustrating and costly.
Oh, that's right. Cars are basically computers on wheels these days.
Yeah, exactly.
What's an example of an engine with those electrical gremlins?
Well, the 3.6L Pentastar V6 engine, found in some Jeep Wranglers, specifically the 2018 model, has been known to have issues with its totally integrated power module.
Okay, and for those of us who aren't super familiar with car electronics, what does that even do?
So the totally integrated power module, or TPM for short, is basically the brain for almost all the electrical functions in the Wrangler.
Okay.
Starting radio, power windows, you name it, the TPM controls it.
So it's pretty important.
It's very important,
Yeah.
and when it fails, it can cause a whole cascade of problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Your car might refuse to start the radio, might cut out the power windows, might get stuck. It can be a real nightmare.
That does not sound fun.
And replacing the TPM isn't cheap. You're looking at around $1,500.
Ouch. Okay, back to mechanical issues for a second.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about newer engines, but surely older engines have their own quirks too, right?
Of course. Take the GM 2.4L Quad-4 engine, for example.
Okay.
It was used in Pontiac Grand Am and a Buick Skylark models.
Right.
And it was meant to be a game changer, but it fell short in the reliability department.
What was the issue with this one? Was it just old age or was there something more specific?
One major problem was the oil change monitor system. It was designed to track oil life accurately, but it often missed the mark.
So drivers were relying on a faulty system to tell them when to change their oil.
Exactly, and that led many owners to wait too long for oil changes, which can cause serious damage to an engine.
So even with technology, you got to be proactive about maintenance.
You do. You can't just rely on the car to tell you what to do.
Okay, good advice.
Mm.
Speaking of older engines, what about those from brands known for their character? Maybe even a bit of quirkiness.
Ah. You must be thinking of Alfa Romeo.
Maybe.
They produce stylish and sporty cars, but their engines don't always live up to that same reputation.
Right.
The Alfa Romeo 2.0 twin-spark 16V engine,
Okay.
produced from 1995 to 2010, is a good example.
Right.
It's fun to drive, but it's also fragile and requires meticulous maintenance.
I can see it now. A classic Alfa Romeo broken down on the side of the road, looking stylish but very much out of commission.
That's the unfortunate reality for some Alfa Romeo owners. This engine needs high-quality oil, frequent oil changes, gentle warm-up procedures. It needs to be babied.
So maybe not the best choice for someone who wants a low-maintenance daily driver.
Probably not. It seems like European engines, both old and new, have some recurring themes on this list.
Yeah, they do.
What about the VW 1.2 TSI engine?
Oh, yeah. Found in various Volkswagen Group vehicles.
Exactly. Another engine that might look good on paper, but can turn into a real headache.
What's the issue with this one?
Well, the timing chain system is prone to problems.
There it is again.
There it is again. Tensioner failures can happen as early as 20,000 miles.
Oh, wow.
And the repairs can be costly, especially if that timing chain failure leads to further engine damage.
So it's like a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
It can be.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be one of the more reliable European brands.
Right. You would think so.
Okay.
Okay, last but not least, we have to talk about some Japanese engines that made the list, which is surprising because Japanese cars are generally known for their reliability. What's going on there?
It just goes to show that no manufacturer is perfect.
True.
Take the Nissan 1.5 and 1.8 QG engines
Okay.
used in models from 1999 to 2006.
Right.
They're notorious for their excessive oil consumption.
So another one for the oil guzzlers category.
Absolutely. They burn through oil at an alarming rate, which can lead to major engine damage if it's not addressed promptly.
So you got to keep an eye on that oil level.
You do.
Yeah.
And even with frequent top-ups, the wear and tear on those piston rings can eventually lead to catastrophic engine failure.
It sounds like these Nissan engines are a gamble.
They can be. What other Japanese engine should we be aware of?
I don't know. You tell me.
The Saab 2.0 and 2.3 turbo engines,
Okay.
used in models from 1990 to 2010.
Right.
They're known for their performance, but also for their demanding maintenance needs and potential for expensive problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Well, these engines have issues with heat management, which can lead to overheating and damage to the crankshaft bearings. They're also prone to oil sludge buildup, requiring meticulous adherence to oil change schedules.
It sounds like owning a Saab with one of these engines requires a lot of care and attention.
It does, and maybe a fire extinguisher just in case.
You bring up a good point. It's not just about knowing which engines to avoid, but also understanding that any engine, even a reliable one, needs proper care and maintenance to stay healthy.
Right, prevention is key.
It is. We've covered so much ground today, from European luxury cars to American SUVs, from diesel engines to timing chains, and from electrical gremlins to those pesky design flaws that can plague any engine. What are some final pieces of advice for our listeners who are in the market for a new car?
Well, the most important thing is to do your research. This list of unreliable engines is just a starting point. There are plenty of other resources available to help you choose a car with a reliable engine. Don't just rely on a car's reputation or a salesperson's pitch.
You got to dig a little deeper.
You do to dig. Research the engine, read reviews from other owners, and consider getting a pre-purchase inspection from a trusted mechanic.
That's excellent advice. A little bit of effort up front can save you a lot of headaches and expense in the long run. What about those pre-purchase inspections? What should people know about those?
It's a small investment that can give you peace of mind. A mechanic can thoroughly inspect the car, checking for any potential problems, including those that might not be obvious to the untrained eye. It's like having a car expert in your corner, helping you make an informed decision.
It sounds like a worthwhile investment, especially if you're considering buying a used car.
Absolutely. And remember, even the most reliable engine can develop problems if it's not properly maintained.
Right.
Follow the manufacturer's recommended maintenance schedule. Use high-quality fluids and address any issues promptly. Don't ignore those warning lights.
It's all about being a responsible car owner. It's an investment in the longevity of your car and your peace of mind.
Well said. So if you're thinking about buying a new car, be sure to do your research, get a pre-purchase inspection, and take good care of your engine.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of unreliable car engines. We've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully our listeners are now armed with the knowledge to make informed decisions and avoid those ticking time bombs. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.